How to deal with emotional slavery. You see, usually when we talk about slavery, of course, we come from like the ancient type of slavery, which basically you own a person. And now you have the modern version, which it would be like wage slavery, which basically is you are being tied up only by your wage, and you're always on the bridge between having enough money to survive and having enough money to be able to thrive and to prosper. But I would like to talk about a different topic, which is emotional slavery. And I think this happens a lot, especially between abusive families or abusive systems. This can be especially between narcissistic, abusive families, or even like any type of abusive system. The same way as when you are a slave and you are just having to work for someone else and someone else owns you, you don't have your own liberty, you don't have your own freedom. I think the same way when you are an emotional slave, you don't have the choice to do anything else other than to give emotional services to your master or to your owner. And how this can happen, how someone can really just be an emotional slave, and what would someone else would like to have someone as an emotional slave? Like, this would make no sense for most people, right? Or maybe not. Look, I am from Europe. I'm from Spain. And traditionally here in Europe, usually it's very well known, especially in the poorest areas and the poorest countries, that they have a lot of kids. Very long time ago, a century ago, the kids will be the best investment. Of course, slavery was not there around anymore, like official slavery, owning someone and stuff like that. But in some ways, in the rural areas especially, I know from my side on Spain, on the south of Spain, but this can happen also in the south of Italy and Greece, and probably in the rest of Europe it had happened also that. But what it will happen is like the best investment for a family, it will be to have kids. And then the kids, when they were enough to just speak and to walk by themselves, like we're talking about 6 to 8 years, they will go to work on whatever you will go. I see that on my family, my grandparents, like they will do that. And you will have kids just basically in the age of being able to play, to try to develop themselves. Like now this is unimaginable. But at that time, you needed to survive and you need to bring money to the house. So you will get kids, you will have a lot of kids, and then in a 6-year investment, you put your kid to work and then you get the money back. This is a type of child slavery, and this is very common in different parts of the world. Like this have been known in China, in Africa, and this is something that is even common nowadays in undeveloped countries. So even though this is done out of necessity, it's still a way of slavery. You are just enslaving someone else's will and someone else's needs, especially for a kid. And now we understand that a kid needs to grow and to play, not having to have the weight of a human adult. Well, now let's get back to right now, and let's get to this situation and this supposition that in some ways now we have more abundance, especially physical, material, economic abundance. So now it's not needed anymore to have your kids to work for you because you have a good stability, you have a stable job, you have security, you have a good house, you have very well quality of life. But now what is the problem? Maybe you are not happy and you don't understand why. Why you might not understand why you are not happy? Maybe because you are coming from a child slavery system and you are a first generation of people who can prosper. Or maybe it's because you are scared and you have been living your whole life trying to hide and seek, and your culture doesn't have any type of emotional tools that you can use and you don't understand what is going on. You think that maybe therapy is for crazy people or for losers or for people who are depressed, and you don't want to do that. So you don't take charge of your emotions. So then you have kids. Because maybe it's what you wanted to do, or maybe it's because you thought that you were going to give them a better life that you were having. But now these kids, they are happy. Without not doing anything, they are simply happy. So what do you do to these kids? You basically take their happiness. You are extracting the happiness from the kids in a way, just by validation, admiration, whatever the kid needs, because the kid is looking to you for this type of reinforcement, and you're taking that from the kid for your own well-being. So now we have a system, a toxic system and dysfunctional system, of course, because you are trying to delegate your own problems to a small kid that doesn't have even awareness of what is going on. But a system that works, you're basically creating an emotional slave. You're training a kid the same way that he was trained 100 years ago to just be working and to suppress their own instincts of playing, of being stupid, of being fun, of being what a kid is supposed to be. And now, instead of doing it for work and physical labor, you are doing it for emotional labor and psychological labor. You are training the kid to listen to you instead of you listening to the kid. You are training the kid to be able to read and mimic your emotions instead of you mimicking the kid. You are training the kid to be stable and to understand you and to be not reactive to your emotions instead of you being stable and not being reactive to the emotions. And what does this create? Well, this creates what is called in psychology a parentified kid, and then an undeveloped, psychologically undeveloped adult, because you never were able to go through your childhood. Of course, we could say that this is better than physical labor because, with physical labor, you are working and also not thinking. It's like a Jenga tower, so you take from the bottom and everything falls down. So if you are working, you cannot basically even think about anything. But this is still a way of slavery. A better way, maybe it is, a more functional way, less damaging way physically. I wouldn't say so, because the problem with emotional labor is, first, it is not recognized as labor. So this can create a burnout and exhaustion for the kid or the adult. Now, if you are now a grown-up, you're still feeling that you are having to take care constantly of your parents. Also, there is an unawareness, because you can be working and also doing that labor full-time. So you are doing it full right circle. At least when you were in the child labor and you were working for trying to raise money to your family and to your parents, once you get out of the house, well, you leave that system. But if you are in emotional labor, maybe you are there forever, in a way. You could argue that if you were doing the physical labor, you would also have to do the emotional labor, so you have double labor when you are in the house, and once you leave, you only have the emotional labor, so you have more amount of work for someone else and you have double the amount of slavery. So this is true. We have become better, I think, in some ways. Another problem with emotional labor is that you are not able to sustain yourself. Like, usually you are trying to replicate the same for the next generation. So if you are used to having to take care always and give everything to someone else, especially the person who are responsible, like the persons who were supposed to be there and give you that type of unconditional understanding and unconditional love and all this emotional work that parents are supposed to do, or primary caregivers are supposed to do, to listen to the kid, to not be reactive, to understand the kid, have empathy, showing affection. This is the minimum. You could be the most loving parent, of course, and you could be a bit more distant, a bit more separated, or you could be in your own problems. But the minimum that you have to do is at least give attention, daily attention to the kid and understanding and emotional awareness a little bit. Sadly, this is not the case for a lot of people. And you could enter a lot of systems, a lot of family systems where the parents are basically checked out, completely checked out through TV in the past, now social media, wherever, alcohol. You find systems where the parents are simply not there. They don't give attention maybe once a year or twice a year. And that is normal for them. And the only attention that they are given to the kid is for the kid to validate them, where the parents are basically just squeezing all the emotional juice from the kid. The problem with that is what we said before, that then maybe afterwards you are going to raise kids, or maybe you have a partner, and maybe through your partner you are having the same problem. You are expecting your partner to take care of you because you were taking care of your parents, or maybe you are taking care of your partner and expecting your partner to take care of you. So you are having all these twisted systems that you are trying to just throw a lasso to someone and try to pull it close to you. And of course, it's unavoidable to enter into emotional blackmail and trying to get things in a twisted way, passive aggressiveness, because you are doing a subtle contract that you are trying to win back from the persons who raised you. How do you deal with that? How do you solve this unstoppable emotional abuse and emotional slavery? Look, well, very simple. You basically start taking care of yourself and you redirect all this emotional energy that you are putting on someone else, expecting to be taking care of you, towards you. This is a very difficult process. Like, I will not say that this is easy. A lot of people, they speak on the internet like, oh yeah, you should be taking care of yourself, love yourself. Well, you know, all these things that the people tell you on the internet, and it's easier to say that just to do it. This was my case also. Like, I try just to say, hey, I love myself, I appreciate and value myself. But this doesn't work like that. You can say that 1,000 times and you wouldn't believe it if you don't do it or you don't see it by example. The best way is to take it slowly and to start to look how you do it to other people, and you see how you are treating other people. And first you start to take out the energy from other people, like, okay, well, I'm trying to be here like a non-reactive and calm person and trying to support this person, and I'm trying to expect from this person the same, but this person is not giving it in the same way, or this person cannot do it the same way that I will do it myself. Okay, let me step back and let's do the same that I'm doing for him or her, and I'm gonna do it for myself. Let's see how this works. And slowly but surely, if you are being conscious about this, you probably can start to get out of emotional slavery. Now you could think, is this that easy? Like, normal slavery usually takes years, or maybe it will be for a lifetime. Yeah, you will be someone else's slave. And I will say so. The main problem is that when you start to take off the energy and the emotional labor from other people, especially if these persons have been your caregivers or your parents or whoever raised you, the main problem is that you're gonna have to deal with a lot of resistance. In some cases it will work, but most cases, I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably an adult, so we're talking at least 18 years or so of this system working, so it's a very long time anyway, or in so. And the problem with this resistance is that then you are starting to face a strong amount of guilt. I mean, this guilt comes from you, of course, you are the one who has to deal with it. But this guilt is created by the persons and for the system. It can be through any manipulation technique that you can see on the internet, love bombing, blame shifting, whatever the person finds out. But at the end of the day, we are talking about a very difficult process to try to step back, and a lot of resistance from the people who have you being given that emotional support. And in a way, it's kind of like a vortex, because you are trying to not give it, but then you are feeling guilty, so it's more easy for you to give that emotional support other than feeling guilty. And if you stay with the guiltiness for yourself, you're starting to feel even worse. And it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, that you are always trying to take care of other people just for not feeling guilty and trying to feel like good with yourself and not feeling bad. The best way to do this is basically facing the guilt, trying to do it by small doses. Of course, getting therapy, which therapy will help you to be having close to your ground. If you cannot afford therapy, then maybe you can get to an AI, ChatGPT or Gemini, or whatever you want to use. And that will help you to ground and to get back to your center. And slowly but surely the guilt will fade away. This is a very long process. I mean, we are talking about years, like especially years in the case of strong abusive families, if you are dealing with narcissism and stuff like that. Why don't just cut away and not facing that, and why not just leave and never look back? Well, if you don't do the work, chances are, unless you are having like a crazy experience, but I'm almost 99% sure that you will repeat the same pattern with someone else. Not because you wanted to, but because you have the tools. And unconsciously, you will find someone or something that is similar enough, which is different enough to fool you. So you're like, oh, this person is different, or this is different. And similar enough to hurt you. So you will be back to the same loop, but with someone else. Just because you have the tools and you didn't complete your lesson. I mean, you could say it in a spiritual way. You didn't complete what you were supposed to fulfill and you were supposed to do. So, and even when we're talking about this, I mean, this will be very difficult and I wouldn't take it as advice, but this could even be with narcissistic and abusive families. Of course, there is a part that is like the physical abuse, and with physical abuse, you need to cut out. I mean, if there is physical abuse, there is no way whatsoever you need to leave. There is no way, because physical abuse is on top of this emotional slavery. But in cases where there is a lot of emotional blackmail, even with narcissistic, with narcissistic people, we know that they are like very, very oriented towards the emotional space. We are gonna try to destroy you psychologically, and you're gonna feel bad, and you're gonna feel good, and this and that. Even with them, once you withdraw their attention and you kind of do gray walling, so you are like, you don't give anything, like you are there like, I don't give a crap, I'm not feeling like this, if I'm interested about the conversation, it's okay, if not, I'm not, I mean, I'm not gonna participate, I'm simply there. Once you have to get to that point, which is extremely hard and extremely difficult, and maybe sometimes it's better just to leave. I mean, I'm telling you from experience, sometimes it's just better to leave. Like, you cannot simply try to do that from a position where you are feeling like scared from your safety or scared from shouting from the narcissist. Like, this cannot be like this. But once you get to that position that you don't give a crap, like really, because you have faced in your own fears, like usually, for example, with a narcissist, the worst fear is, what is the worst fear? Abandonment, to be left on the streets, to be outside. What is the worst fear? Okay, whatever fear it is, you go face it and you process it and you integrate that fear. It's gonna be hard as fuck, because if you are talking about abandonment, I mean, you're gonna go to the streets. I mean, no one wants to face the streets, and maybe there is a better way, which I would recommend you to face with a psychologist or with a therapist. But once you face that, they have no ammunition, because it's like, oh, I threatened you to do this. It's like, okay, this is fine, I will do it. And then they don't have any power over you. Any power. They will lose all power whatsoever. And you basically become like a god on earth. Like at least around them. Like, you don't give a fuck. Like, they start to talk about you to you. You don't want to give your attention, or you give it very subtle, only because you want to get something, or or it is needed for something, and that's it. And you turn a situation upside down. What is supposed to trap you is empowering you and liberating you. This is a very beautiful way to escape emotional slavery, but it's a very hard way and very difficult way to do so. So, well, as a recap, how can we get out of emotional slavery, and how we'll be able to get free from that? I mean, first of all, the best way is to get education, information, as this video. And this also brings us to my guide, How to Recover from Emotional Abuse and Narcissism, a toolkit to survive, which is a guide that I put together some time ago. And basically we are walking step by step what is the process and the tools on how to be able to survive from this type of emotional abuse, and also from narcissism, which is like one of the worst ways of getting emotional abuse, is compared to the perversion of the soul from some psychologists. If you're interested in learning more, you can click the link on the description, and with the code that you're seeing on the screen, you can get a special discount. The second thing from information, of course, is therapy. Therapy is going to help you a lot, especially if you find the right therapist. I mean, this is a work on itself, but once you find the right therapist, you shop for the right therapist, and you have to make sure that you can pay the therapy on a long-term basis, because this will not work for only 1 month or 2 months. This has to be for at least more than a few years. And once you are in a position that you have stability for that and you can pay for that, this will definitely help you a lot. And the last thing is to face your own fears in a safe and nurturing way. If you are able to face whatever is keeping you there, whatever is keeping you, at the end of the day, this is a psychological game. I mean, before you couldn't escape because you have a chain, a physical chain, because you were a slave. Nowadays, this is more of a mental chain. And the good thing about mental change is that once you face it, even though it's hard and even though it's difficult, but once you face it, you will be free no matter wherever you are. No matter wherever you are, and trust me, I say it by experience. So, if you like this video, just give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you want more content like this. And I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.